law and safeguard the national defence.
Question, Baroness de Souza.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask the question, standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, the United Kingdom government is absolutely committed to standing up for democracy and defending human rights around the world. We have a broad and deep partnership with the government of India, and we discuss all elements of our relationship, including concerns where we have them. I myself visited India in February and had constructive discussions with the government's representatives on a wide range of issues.
My Lords, I thank the Noble Lord the Minister for his answer. My Lords, the BJP policy of Hindu nationalism is increasingly invading press freedom, political opposition and civil society space. For example, the use of Unlawful Activities Preventive Act, Sedition Law, the Citizenship Amendment Act and the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act all hint at an electoral autocracy in the world's largest nominal democracy. There appears to be a departure from India's secular constitution and its underlying democratic principles. Does not the Minister believe these to be dangerous precedents?
My Lords, one area which I'm very focused on is, of course, the importance of the constitutional protections that we have ourselves as well as those that we see abroad. And India is one of those countries that provides constitutional protections to communities. I understand that concerns that the Noble Lady alludes to, and I assure the Noble Lady in every respect, indeed, on every one of the particular legislative instruments that the Noble Lady has mentioned, we have made our views known to India and will continue to do so. India is also a country which is both multi-party in terms of the elections which are coming forward. It is very much for the people of India to decide upon its government, but it is a country which celebrates a wide diversity of religions as well.
My Lords, thank you. My Lords, could I ask my noble friend how the government is collaborating with Western partners to address shared challenges and promote democratic governance, human rights and the rule of law, and what opportunities exist for joint initiatives and cooperation in supporting India's democratic trajectory while advancing mutual interests.
Noble friend raises an important issue about collaboration, but I would also put to my noble friend that with India, we have not just a partnership, I would term it a friendship, which allows the nature and the depth of the relationship to raise issues that we have of concern on a broad range of human rights directly in a constructive way, and we continue to do so. And of course, we learn from each other. India is the world's largest democracy. Its election is imminent, and of course there will be a larger degree of commentary on that, but I do believe very strongly that the transparency of that election will be very clear, and we do hope that all communities in India, as is their right within the Constitution, will exercise their right to vote.
India is critical to the success of the Sustainable Development Goals, and the Secretary-General on the 75th anniversary of India said that it was at a critical point in terms of leading by example, a model of resilience and an advocate for the Sustainable Development Goals. While Labour has long supported India's role in international forums like the UN Security Council, could the Noble Lord update us on where we are in terms of reaching a consensus for expanding the permanent membership of the UN Security Council?
As the Noble Lord would know, the United Kingdom is a long-standing supporter of expanding the UN Security Council, and that remains the case with this government, and indeed the inclusion of India as a key member of that widened Security Council is something that we believe is fundamental to that reform. However, the Noble Lord will be aware of the challenges that are faced because of the constitution of the Security Council. It does require unanimity amongst the P5, and we've seen the challenges in recent years of what that presents.
My Lord, last year the Canadian government expelled Indian diplomats for their involvement in the murder of a Canadian Sikh. This was followed by an attempt by the Indian government in America to assassinate an American Sikh. In this country, the death of a Sikh in suspicious circumstances in Birmingham led Westminster Police to warn prominent Sikhs of a possible threat to their lives at the hands of Indian agents. Prime Minister Modi, shown in a BBC documentary as having a responsibility for the Gujarat riots in which thousands of Muslims were killed, is now planning a citizenship law that will disadvantage thousands of Muslims in a so-called secular state. Is the government not being a little hypocritical in not voicing its criticism of India's abuse of human rights in the same strident terms as it reserves for Russia and non-Commonwealth countries?
For a start, I wouldn't compare India in any shape or form to Russia. We have to be very, very clear in that respect. Taking a couple of the points, first of all, on the specific case that the Noble Lord raised, he will be aware himself that following speculation on that particular case, there was a thorough review undertaken by the West Midlands Police and concluded that there were no suspicious circumstances. On the wider issues he's raised, including reference to the CAA, that was a specific provision, and of course we've raised the concerns related to that, but it is very clear that it provides freedom of religion or belief protections and indeed minority protections to those people seeking citizenship in India from neighbouring Islamic states. We have raised concerns about minorities within the Muslim communities from those states, and of course what this amendment does is allow someone to get citizenship within 5 years, but for Muslims from those states they still will be allowed to get citizenship within the 11 years specified.
With regards to press freedom, I know this has been a focus of the Minister's work on human rights. The BBC, across its services, provide more services to Indians than the entire population of the United Kingdom. But as a result of harassment and intimidation, the BBC has had to uniquely restructure its presence within India to operate from a purely private sector entity. Will the Minister reassure me that officials from the Department of Business and Trade who are negotiating an FTA with India will not be providing a market access offer for Indians to have opportunities within the UK media market, whilst those are not reciprocal for broadcasters such as the BBC within India?
My Lords, the Noble Lord is quite right. This government stands up for media freedom and the protection of media. Indeed, the current Chancellor of the Exchequer initiated such a programme during his time as Foreign Secretary, and we stand by that coalition. We've continued to raise those specific concerns related to the BBC with the Government of India, and I assure him in terms of the progress, which is positive, on the FTA, we want to ensure it's an agreement which works for both countries, is robust, and in the interests of all communities, all sectors, and all industries, both in India and the United Kingdom.
My Lords, the number of acts of religiously motivated violence against Christians in India has increased almost every year since 2014, from 147 to 687 in 2023. Last year, over 500 Christians were arrested under anti-conversion laws, including a couple and their pastor during their wedding, on the grounds that the wedding was a conversion event. Will the Minister condemn this state of affairs, and if so, what steps will the government take with its allies to defend freedom of religion and belief in India?
I assure the Right Reverend Prelate, we and this government, indeed with our partners, are fully committed to defending freedom of religion or belief globally. Any reports of discrimination against religion minorities are investigated by the India Police. We have raised direct concerns over any issue of so-called forced conversions, and I assure the Right Reverend Prelate we will continue to raise these in a productive and constructive way with the Government of India.
My Lords, before the United Kingdom Government pushes again for India to join the Permanent Five, will we be looking for an improvement in India of treatment of minorities and of the democratic process?
I've already said in previous answers we continue to recognise India's valuable contribution internationally, but equally raise concerns constructively where we see them.
My Lord, in addition to the
dangers to minorities that have been identified so far. Can the Noble Lord assure us that he raises these questions about communal violence and sectarianism and the threat that that has to India, specifically, for instance, the position in Manipur recently with the hill tribes there being targeted because of their ethnicity and religion, but also the 166 million Dalits who continue to be discriminated against? And does he raise with the Indian government the wonderful constitution crafted by a Dalit, Dr. Ambedkar, which guarantees those rights, and the work of people like Dr. Brian Grimm, which shows how freedom of religion or belief leads to prosperity, stability and harmony?
Well, I totally concur with the Noble Lord's summary to his question, because that's demonstrable in any country around the world. On the issue of Dalits, we have seen progress in this respect, not just from the crafting of the Constitution, but in terms of the progress Dalits have made, indeed all communities have made in India, and those have to be protected and strengthened. And of course, on the issue of Manipur, yes, I met with Home Secretary Bala when I was in India and raised that directly with him, and that remains an area of direct and constructive dialogue.
Fourth oral question, Baroness Mellon.
I beg